In the heated final weeks before the 2024 U.S. presidential election, tensions have reached new heights as Donald Trump's rhetoric has become increasingly authoritarian. His words have ignited a fierce backlash, not just from Democrats, but across the political spectrum. The most alarming of these recent comments involves a shocking revelation that the former president has suggested using the U.S. military against his political opponents during the upcoming election. At a rally in Erie, Pennsylvania, Vice President Kamala Harris took the stage and delivered a sobering warning to the American people. She played several clips of Trump's inflammatory threats and highlighted the dangerous path he is treading. Harris boldly stated that Trump views anyone who doesn't support him or refuses to bow to his will as an enemy of the country. In her chilling message, she laid bare a truth that many have feared. Trump, should he return to office, would stop at nothing to consolidate power, even if that meant using the full force of the military to silence opposition. This revelation raises serious concerns about the state of American democracy and the lengths to which Trump is willing to go in his pursuit of power. As the 2024 election looms, the nation stands at a crossroads between freedom and fascism, democracy and dictatorship. The question is no longer about partisan politics. It's about the very survival of the democratic institutions that have safeguarded America for centuries. Kamala Harris's stark warning is a call to action, and it demands that we take a closer look at Trump's escalating authoritarian behavior. Donald Trump's recent statements at rallies across the country have grown more disturbing with each passing day. One of the most unsettling moments came when he described those who oppose him as the enemy from within, suggesting that they were more dangerous than foreign adversaries like Russia and China. These people, he said ominously, should be put in jail. We have some very bad people, some sick people, radical left lunatics. It wasn't just the language of division that sent shockwaves through the political landscape. It was the solution Trump proposed. In one rally, Trump told his supporters that if necessary, the National Guard or even the military should be used to deal with his opponents. The crowd's cheers were a stark reminder of the deepening divisions in the country and the dangerous authoritarian undercurrent in Trump's movement. Trump's words were not just political theater. They are the statements of a man who sees himself above the law, unbound by the constraints of democracy. The suggestion that the military could be deployed on Election Day against political opponents is a direct threat to the fundamental principles of the U.S. Constitution. It's a move that echoes the darkest periods of history, where dictators have used the military to crush dissent and maintain power at any cost. Kamala Harris speaks out. Kamala Harris, a fierce advocate for democracy and a key figure in the battle against Trump's authoritarianism, has been one of the few prominent Democrats willing to call out Trump's fascistic tendencies. At the rally in Erie, Pennsylvania, she did not mince words. After playing clips of Trump's inflammatory rhetoric, she addressed the crowd with a somber message. He considers anyone who doesn't support him or who will not bend to his will an enemy of our country. Harris's warning was clear. Trump's vision of America is one where political opponents are treated as enemies of the state, where journalists who report stories he doesn't like are targeted, and where election officials who refuse to falsify votes for him are labeled traitors. This is not the rhetoric of a democratic leader. It is the language of an authoritarian strongman. In her speech, Harris laid out the stark reality of what a second Trump term could mean for the country. He's saying that he would use the military to go after them, she said. Think about this. We know who he would target because he has attacked them before: journalists, election officials, judges, anyone who stands in his way. Her words were a direct indictment of Trump's vision for America, one where power is centralized in the hands of one man, and anyone who opposes him is crushed under the weight of his authoritarian ambitions. The mark of an authoritarian. What makes Trump's recent comments so alarming is how closely they mirror the behavior of authoritarian leaders around the world. Historian Ruth Ben-Ghiat, an expert on authoritarianism from New York University, has drawn parallels between Trump's rhetoric and that of leaders like Hungary's Viktor Orban, India's Narendra Modi, and Russia's Vladimir Putin. He's actually rehearsing, in a sense, what he will do as head of state, Ben-Ghiat warned. This is what Orban does, what Modi is doing, and what Putin has long done. Trump's attacks on the press, his threats against political opponents, and his attempts to undermine the electoral process are all hallmarks of authoritarianism. For years, Trump has referred to the media as fake news and labeled them the enemy of the people, a tactic used by authoritarian leaders to discredit independent journalism and control the narrative. By undermining the press, Trump is attacking one of the cornerstones of a free and fair democracy, the right to access truthful, unbiased information. Moreover, Trump's recent suggestion that the military could be used against political opponents is a terrifying escalation. The military is meant to protect the nation from external threats, not to be used as a tool to suppress dissent or maintain political power. The fact that Trump would even entertain such an idea is a clear indication of how far he is willing to go to hold on to power. A history of undermining democracy. Trump's authoritarian tendencies are not new. Throughout his political career, he has repeatedly undermined democratic institutions and the rule of law. From his attempts to discredit the 2020 election results to his role in inciting the January 6th insurrection, Trump has shown a blatant disregard for the democratic process. In 2020, when it became clear that he had lost the election, Trump refused to concede, instead pushing the false narrative that the election had been stolen by widespread voter fraud. He called for his supporters to fight like hell and urged them to march on the U.S. Capitol, where a violent mob attempted to overturn the election results. The January 6th attack was a direct assault on democracy, and Trump's role in inciting the violence has been well documented. Even now, as he campaigns for the 2024 election, Trump continues to push the same false claims about election fraud. He has repeatedly stated that if he doesn't win, the election will be rigged and has suggested that he will not accept the results if they do not go in his favor. This is a dangerous precedent, as it undermines the integrity of the electoral process and erodes public trust in democratic institutions. The threat to election integrity. Trump's recent comments about using the military on Election Day have raised serious concerns about the integrity of the upcoming election. By framing his political opponents as enemies of the state, Trump is attempting to delegitimize any opposition to his candidacy. His attacks on election officials, such as Californian Congressman Adam Schiff, who led the prosecution in Trump's first impeachment trial, are part of a broader strategy to discredit those who uphold the rule of law. Schiff, who has been a longtime political adversary of Trump, has become a frequent target of the former president's attacks. Trump has labeled Schiff a greater threat to election integrity than foreign terrorists or illegal immigrants, two groups that Trump has often demonized in his speeches. These baseless accusations are part of Trump's broader effort to sow distrust in the electoral process and create a narrative where any result that doesn't favor him is seen as illegitimate. Schiff, who is currently running for a U.S. Senate seat, has responded to Trump's attacks by warning of the dangers of Trump's authoritarianism. In a recent tweet, Schiff accused Trump of inciting violence against his political opponents, just as he did on January 6th. Today, Trump threatened to deploy the military against the enemies from within, Schiff wrote. The same thing he has called me. Just as he incited a mob to attack the Capitol, he again stokes violence against those who oppose him. Schiff's warning is a sobering reminder of the dangers posed by Trump's rhetoric. The former president has a long history of inciting violence and undermining democratic norms, and his recent comments about using the military on Election Day are just the latest example of his authoritarian tendencies. As the 2024 presidential election approaches, the stakes have never been higher. Donald Trump's recent comments about using the military against his political opponents have revealed a dark secret about his true intentions. If given the chance, Trump would not hesitate to use the full force of the U.S. military to silence opposition and consolidate power. His authoritarian rhetoric, coupled with his long history of undermining democratic institutions, poses a grave threat to the future of American democracy. Kamala Harris's warning to the American people is clear. Trump is a danger to the nation, and a second term would be an existential threat to the country's democratic institutions. The choice in the upcoming election is not just about political parties. It's about the survival of democracy itself. In the face of Trump's authoritarian ambitions, it is more important than ever for Americans to stand up and defend the principles of freedom, justice, and democracy. The 2024 election will determine the future of the nation, and it is up to the American people to ensure that democracy prevails over dictatorship.